This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome in, everybody, to this week's edition of Doc and Jock. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Joining me, my cousin Adam, the Jock Strozinski. You know, cuz it's fascinating when you're about to get some vacation time and you got so many things you got to do. This day of recording that we had was so long. Started my day at 8 a.m., got here to the office, and you know when you're thinking about just sitting back for the next like 4 or 5 days, and you're like, man, okay, I got this many clients, this many articles, this many podcasts. My goodness, look, not to say this is not an important podcast to me, but holy cow, this is the last thing on the agenda before a vacation. I'm so excited. My ass needs to take 5 days and just sit on my ass and drink, and that's the plan. I love this time of year because it splits up the year for me perfectly. Grind for 6 months, take a week off, grind for another, 3-4 months, take some time off. So I'm excited as all hell. The weather's been nice. Even though the quarantine now, we got the news on Wednesday that Gretchen Whitmer shut down the bars again. You can drink outside, but you can't drink inside because damn near when Michigan State, when people go to Michigan State, they always come back with some sort of virus.
What'd you come back with?
I came back.
I what, 2 or 3, 4 years there? How long did you spend there? What'd you come back with?
Okay, I'll share this with you. I went to Michigan State a boy. I came out there a man, and it was an amazing 4 years.
It's a good thing you're not allergic to penicillin.
Exactly, it was the best. It was a great experience. You know, sometimes when you reflect back, I had the perfect roommates. I was in Acres my freshman year, so most freshmen had one roommate. I had 3. And those guys went at it Monday through Thursday every single night. I mean, the first night we got there, they took me places, and I seen things that no young boy should see at 18 years old, and it was amazing. It was like heaven on earth. I knew it would be. It outlived expectations, and it's not even for broadcast, the wild stuff that would go on there. And this is in 1997. I mean, bro, they rioted because they took away restrictions on drinking at a field. And the people were like, oh, hell no, we're not doing that. Riot. Win a championship, riot, burn couches. I was like, what the heck is going on here? So they took their drinking seriously. Michigan State was just an amazing 4 years. The best 4 years of my life. I don't think I could handle it again in this day and age, but going through it from 97 until 2001, an amazing 4 years. And on top of that, the Michigan State basketball team won a national title, so I got to celebrate that on campus the night of, and it was just a great experience. And some good news for Michigan State, man. It was great to see on a Monday. Monty Bates probably will never step foot on campus because millions of dollars are awaiting him, but to say, I'm going to Michigan State 2 years early was a nice jumpstart to my week, so it put me in a good mood. Golfed, man, there's nothing like drinking at a golf course, getting a nice little buzz on at like 3 o'clock on a Monday. So I had myself a nice start to the week. Now a good end to the week after a good 3-4 week stretch of just working. My butt needs to take it easy, and I'm excited. But before that, we got a nice jam-packed podcast. Look, my energy's strong. I love doing this. I would probably do this if Adam said, John, I know we're going to do this at 7:30. Let's do this at 10 and change it. I'd be like, fuck. But okay, I'll do it. I'd go to sleep.
That was my week last week, bro.
Exactly.
I'm sorry about that. I apologize.
No, listen, I would do it. I would move mountains to do this. I love this podcast. And like I said, when I saw that number last week, I think it was episode 360. Each week that we keep tallying it, we're on our way to 400. I remember 200. I remember 300. Now we're at 361. Lots of interesting and great things to talk about. What's on the agenda, sir?
Do you remember episode number 1, though?
Absolutely, I remember it.
Episode number 1 was fantastic. We thought we did something really, really special. And I remember taking it over to my dad's house and downloading it for him so he could listen to it. He stopped me 3 minutes in. He was like, what the hell is this?
This
and
sucks.
I was like, it's our show. And he was like, you want to do this for the rest of your life? And I was like, yeah, I love this. This is great. He was like, you better get a new profession. This is trash.
Exactly. Episode 1, oh my God, that brings back memories when we first started. It wasn't that long ago, 2013. But to hear how we sounded and how monotone and bland and scared we were of doing it. But I think that was the best is that we got it out of the way early. And by episode 35, 40, we were just like, fuck it. Whatever we're going to say, we're going to say. And whoever likes it, likes it. And whoever doesn't, who cares? And that's been the best part of doing this is that we've been just letting it rip ever since, man. And here we are, 2020. A pandemic could be threatening the NFL. And because it's weird how society works, and we'll start here just real fast. Now the players are starting to go, wait a minute. This sounds like a boss just trying to get me on the field and get me to go to work and make a bunch of money. Who cares about my health? Some major league athletes are wise, like a Zimmerman that's like, wait a minute, I don't think I need to go out here. I think from the Nationals, I don't need to go out here and risk my life, risk my family. I got millions in the bank, 60 games. What's that really mean? I could just sit my ass at home and collect and wait for next year. And I think that a lot of players should really take a look at this because it really does sound like a bunch of rich people, rich owners going, how do we get this product on the field? Come hell or high water, we don't care about safety. You're getting 25 tests, from Clemson, 25 from Alabama. This thing is not going away lightly. And now you heard about the NFL cutting back now 2 preseason games. July is going to be a pivotal month, and it just seems like we opened a little bit too soon. And half the country doesn't care about masks or wanting to protect anybody. So it's a real weird time right now in America, but I think we're starting to see we're probably opened a little bit too fast or we're not distancing properly to prevent the spread.
Yeah, I think you're right because I know where I'm at right now. And all of a sudden I felt like, okay, cool. Everything's good. We can just go out. I hate wearing the masks. So you can catch me and maybe I'll wear it 50% of the time if I'm lucky. But we might have opened just a tad bit too early, and we might be just rushing things just a little bit too much. And now with all that said, we've got no bars that you can go drinking in Michigan now. You got to go either sit on a patio or you get to get creative with drinks to go, which I don't know if that promotes drunk driving, but I always like taking a roadie with me. I don't know about you.
Oh, man. What's fun about this podcast, Cuz, is that you and I, been doing this since 2013. When something good potentially could happen to one of our Detroit teams, we're like, yeah, fuck no, that's not going to happen. So I listened back to it. It was great. You tried to get your way through it. You were like, in an episode back, I think 3 or 4 weeks ago, you were like, look, let's take a look at this NHL draft lottery. Let's look at how stupid it is and how wild it is that the Red Wings only have an 18% chance of getting the number 1 pick, and combined, the rest of the teams have a 25% chance. And so we said, yeah, I didn't get my hopes up at all. I thought that, okay, maybe worst case scenario, you get 3rd and you just move up. But the worst case scenario for the Red Wings in this NHL draft lottery was to get 4th. And everybody was waiting and it was excited. And one of those rare sports events where you're like, okay, there's a chance to turn around a storied franchise, the Red Wings. And after it was announced, it was great to see the passion, the vitriol, the videos, everybody cussing up a storm going, what the hell? The worst team that had the worst record, that played so bad, the worst goal differential, everything that could have gone wrong for the Wings went wrong. They did what they were supposed to do to get the number 1 pick. They only had an 18% chance to get it, and they dropped to 4th. They got the worst spot. And each and every year now that the Wings have been in this, they haven't moved up. They haven't gotten a victory in this lottery, which is quite stupid, being that this is a marquee franchise in the NHL. And the wildest aspect that pissed everybody off from Detroit to California was a team that is going to be playing in a 5-game series like Montreal, like Toronto, maybe the likes of Pittsburgh. They're going to have a chance to potentially move up. The Stanley Cup champion has a small chance to earn the number 1 pick, and that's not what a lottery is intended to do. You're supposed to achieve competitive balance with a lottery. So whoever came up with this cockamamie approach where we have a draft lottery special and the number 1 pick is not determined, the height of stupidity, and everybody that's associated with the NHL trying to put this together and spin it is absolutely god-awful. It was embarrassing at the highest level. It's one of those times where Steve Yzerman probably should have said something like, this lottery needs to change. It's not going to help us, but going forward, there should be never a system in place where teams that are advancing and playing have an opportunity to get the number 1 overall pick with a talent in Lafreniere that everybody's just talking about with elite talent. So you look at it, the Wings still have an opportunity to get somebody good, a quality number 1 defenseman, maybe trading back, figuring out a way to get more picks, but the Wings got screwed. And for me, I was mad, but I wasn't as upset because pretty much 18.5%, the odds were stacked against you.
The NHL and Gary Bettman and whoever the ass clown is that thought this was a good idea should be ashamed of themselves. This is such a clown show, such a unfunny joke. To have a lotto where somebody who is playing in your makeshift playoff has a chance to get the number 1 overall draft pick, while the team with the heads and tails worst record in the league is going at 4th, which, mind you, 4th was as low as they could fall because they were the absolute worst team in all of the NHL, is unreal to me. This makes absolutely zero sense. The fact that you can be as bad as the Red Wings were last year and have only an 18.5% chance to draft and get the number 1 overall pick, but you have a better than 50% chance to be picking 4th. Like, how does this work? The whole purpose of having a draft is to help infuse your team with talent, to help give your team a shot to help rebuild and catch up to everybody else. And yet, the NHL draft lottery is going to reward a team that has a solid to mediocre record, while a team like the Red Wings, who are an absolute dumpster fire, get to pick 4th. It makes absolutely zero sense to me that you can go ahead and do this, that you can be a commissioner of a league and say, hey, this sounds like a great idea. And it's all in a guise to get ancillary fans who aren't real fans, people who are just kind of on the outskirts, like, oh, what's going on with this NHL draft? What's up with this? Oh, wow, that's really interesting. My team is playing in this weird makeshift cockamamie playoff, and you know what? They have the first overall draft pick, or at least they have a shot at it, while the Red Wings are over there drafting 4th. I mean, if you're a fan of Ottawa, you might be happy because you got the 3rd and the 5th pick. And if you're the Kings, you're like, hell yeah, we got number 2. Let's hope whoever's number 1 doesn't screw this up, because we could be sitting there and waiting on getting an awesome dirty diaper in Lafreniere. The NHL is an absolute joke. This type of lotto system pushes fans away. It keeps them far from your product. You can sit down and easily explain the NFL draft to everybody and anybody. There could be a crackhead walking down the street and you're like, hey, Johnny, come here. Let me explain this to you. And he's like, cool, I'll do anything for a hit real quick. And you're like, you know what, Johnny? Calm down. I'm going to explain the NFL draft to you. And he's like, great. I got it. We're good to go. No, Johnny, let me explain the NHL draft to you. He's going to look at you and say, I don't know. I need another fix. I gotta go do something behind a dumpster real quick so I can get some cash so I can go pay for one more rock. And then we can come back and talk. The way this is set up, it hurts bad teams, and that is not what the draft is set up to do. Look at Cincinnati this year. Cincinnati this year was an absolute dumpster fire. They were a crap show, and yet they've got a franchise quarterback. The NFL draft lotto should be set up to reward teams that are bad. The Red Wings are bad, and they're not like tanking. They're just bad. Newsflash, guys. Dylan Larkin is not a generational talent. He's not great. He's a good player. He's not great. Anthony Mantha, he's a good player. He's not great. As much as I want Tyler Bertuzzi to be an exceptional talent, he's not Connor McDavid, nor will he ever be. You have no great talent on this team. The way this draft was set up, you could have got your generational guy if it wasn't a freaking clown show. Instead, the Red Wings get penalized because Gary Bettman's a boob and the NHL sucks.
Absolutely. And for Red Wings fans, everyone's kind of freaking out going, man, what if Edmonton gets it? They get Connor McDavid and this guy number 1 overall. That would be unbelievably stunning. Yep. If Edmonton gets it, or a team like Pittsburgh, Toronto, Montreal. It's just one of those things where, look, there's a reason why the National Hockey League isn't on anybody's radar besides here in Detroit, because of the fact that they do things like this. It's a really shoddy way of putting together a presentation. Let's have a draft lottery where nobody knows who the number 1 pick is. Okay, that's really great. So have a second lottery. And the fascinating part, too, that kind of came about after people talked about this is they come out with this plan. We're going to have this tournament. When's it going to start? What are the details? Where's it going to happen? And you're not hearing a lot of that. So they came up with an initial plan, I think, to get some pub. But now when there's an opportunity to get things going, we don't know jack about what's going on with the National Hockey League. So when you look at leadership, it takes, its toll when you see leadership like Gary Bettman's and what he's done to the league. I think he took the league in a manner in which it was decent. And then when you lose the contract with ESPN, you take it away from a national spotlight. It's not talked about. I mean, basically, I would probably right now watch cornhole or poker or something else, or a replay of a 15-year-old wrestling event than a hockey game, because it's going to be, it's a sport right now that doesn't have a lot of marquee stars, and one of the best franchises in the National Hockey League, the Detroit Red Wings, did everything that they were supposed to do to kind of jumpstart a rebuild. You get a great general manager, and you don't get rewarded once out of 4 years. And there was a stat that said that in Detroit, in lotteries, it's unbelievable that in the last, I think, 12 to 15 years, no team in Detroit has moved up. None. Not a single time has a team moved up. They've drafted at their spot or gotten worse. And it's unbelievable time and time again how the Detroit organizations get screwed in these lotteries. It makes it hard to make the argument to tank, but give Yzerman credit. I think he'll do something. Maybe with Ottawa, maybe there'll be an opportunity in the future to do some things, but I do trust that if Yzerman doesn't like what's there at number 4, then he'll make a move and he'll acquire more picks. And I think that you're sitting in a prime spot. At number 4, there's going to be some talent there that other NHL franchises should pay attention to. So I'm hoping that whatever happens, I trust in the judgment of Steve Yzerman. It just stinks that the Wings don't get the best guy, but there's an opportunity based on how the draft is looking. I'm sure you've looked at a couple tankathon mock drafts or looked at some things. There's a chance that the number 1 overall defenseman in the class could fall to the Wings, and then you could solidify the defense. And then you're hearing, I know too, you've probably heard that there's this Russian defenseman that's all world that could come in and replace Jimmy Howard and actually do some things. So they could trade back and go that route. So there's an opportunity to improve this team. It just stinks because Detroit had a chance to have some buzz, some national buzz for a long time if they had secured that number 1 pick, but it's not happening. And so be it. That's how hockey is. The Wings got screwed, but it's not all dire. I do believe heavily in Steve Yzerman. It's going to be okay because it sucks now. We didn't get the lottery, but Yzerman is going to make it work. He's going to turn this thing around. He's one of the top 5 GMs in the entire league.
What do you think about him going the high road when asked about this and basically saying, yeah, no big deal. We'll do the best that we can do with it, and we'll get somebody who's talented.
Yeah. That's what a classy GM's supposed to do, is that you cuss in private and in public. Yeah, you and I couldn't be GMs because we would have been pounding our fists. We would have had our jaws clenched. We would have just been like when you always laugh because you're like, yeah, I would be calm, cool, collected. If number 4 would have flipped over and I would have saw the Wings logo, my hand would have flew up and Pop would have flew over. I would have got up with my hands on my head. I would have been like, what the hell? And no, it's he's got the makeup to do the job, and he'll do a good job. It's just unbelievable that this setup was like this, and it's unbelievable that we even talked about it and said, what's up with this setup? It doesn't really give us a lot of confidence. And I ran a lot of simulations. I love that site, Tankathon. You can run simulations. I basically once, I think in 50 simulations that I did, got the Wings to number 1. So I wasn't really expecting it. We talked about it. So it's just more of the same. Detroit gets screwed and more incompetence at the highest level. And that's what you see. Sometimes, leadership is hard. It's a hard thing to be a leader. Absolutely. I can understand that. So the National Hockey League, not the best leaders. That's why their sport is lagging way behind the other 3. And that's just the way it is. That's the way it will probably be for the foreseeable future. Now, something that we may see in the foreseeable future that we're not expecting, but the National Football League could, if certain states like Michigan, where they got a nice Democratic leader, and they're like, hey, we're not opening up fast. We're going to take this thing seriously. We're going to do our due diligence. We're going to not just act like there's no such thing as Corona. We're going to shut this down. And at this point in time in Michigan, sports are open, but not allowed yet to have fans. So we could conceive, it's conceivable that the Lions could start the National Football League season week 1 in front of no fans. And so I got to thinking, cause you know what? What has been the constant in terms of the Lions? No, I know everyone right away jumped and said the Fords, they need to sell. I know it's automatic. No, not this time. Not this time, guys. What's been automatic is that for the entire time that the Ford family has owned the team, they've played in front of fans. They've never not played in front of fans. So what if the time when the Detroit Lions need to take that step forward in a critical season, what if the one thing that was jacking up the Lions this entire time was the fans? What if the pressure of just the woe is me? Because there's always that moment in the game when the Lions are up like 13-10 and they're playing well. It's the third quarter. All of a sudden something weird happens, like a player muffs a punt or there's a weird penalty or something happens and everybody's like, oh no, here we go again. The players feel it. They know it. What if there's no pressure? What if their job is just to go out there and ball? No fans, no boos, no groans, no woe is me. They make a mistake. Nobody cares. They on to the next play. Maybe they take advantage of knowing some of the signals. Maybe they take advantage of the lack of pressure. What if the issue all along was just the pressure and playing in front of fans? What if the Lions ball out in front of no fans? I think it's a possibility that, maybe the pressure of having fans and expectations and the weight of a generation that knows this team sucks on them all the time because you feel it's palpable. You know that feeling. You've sat there in the stadium, cuz two sheets to the wind, drinking beers, you're like, oh shit, here's a time when the Lions are going to fuck up. You know it, and the players know it too. So I think that, you know what, playing in front of no fans might be an advantageous position for the Lions.
So all of a sudden, instead of having regular games, they treat them like scrimmages, and they go in it with a little bit more of a looser mindset because they don't have the pressure from the 65,000 fans in the stands at Ford Field. And Matt Stafford's able to go out there and throw 3 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns a game.
Exactly.
Kerryon Johnson's able to stay healthy and run for 100 yards every other game. And Kenny Golladay eclipses new records for wide receivers. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. Maybe all along it wasn't the Fords, it was the fans. Our toxic energy from the podcasters and the vloggers and the journalists. Maybe it was us all along and the toxic vibes. Maybe they're like, you know what? This is great. I don't have to answer to anybody. When the game's done, I can just stare at the screen, put on some glasses, answer a couple questions, bounce out. Maybe this new way of handling business. I mean, maybe they come in in a better mood. They're not wore out. They didn't come in to Detroit at all. You know, they got to stay in their luxury homes in California and Florida and in Alabama and the South and all over the world. And they got to stay with their families a lot longer. Maybe this virtual offseason will do good, man. Look, you know we're grasping at straws here as everybody's taking out their earpods going, what the hell's wrong with these guys? Look, we are trying in any aspect to go, well, what's the reason why the Lions have sucked for 50 years? And we're trying anything. And we've always put it to ownership. We've always put it to this or that. Maybe it's just been the pressure. Maybe it's just been whatever funk that the whole vibe of a National Football League experience causes the Detroit Lions. Maybe if everything's stripped down and it's just mano-a-mano, line versus line, QB versus QB, half of the audience is not there, no pressure, no media, nothing going on, just ball. Maybe that just turns the tides for the Detroit Lions. Hell, everyone's talking about it, and I keep saying it. This is the prime year where the Lions are going to start out 8-0, and then right then, week 9, boom, NFL shuts down. We have no determined date to return, and everyone's happy. Okuda's like running into the end zone, playing well. Looks like a baller. Stafford looks like a baller. Kenny G gets a nice contract and plays well. The SEC trio of running backs, everything hits good. And then it's going to be COVID that derails everything. And then I fully expect that it's going to be 60% chance that the Lions will be the 94 version of the Montreal Expos, the team that was, but just never finished. I truly expect it. I expect the worst case scenario to happen in regards to the Lions. But if there's no fans, there's no pressure, maybe just letting things slide, and I think too, with no fans, I do think that at least the opportunity not to have false starts and as many penalties will go away. They'll line up onside correctly each and every time on both sides of the ball. They'll be able to understand maybe a couple signals from some of the opponents. There's maybe some more benefits that we're not looking at, but I'm excited potentially just maybe to see one game, maybe to cover a game where all the media gets their own little spot. Like I get the 40-yard line, farthest away from everybody, and then everybody's like, there's 12 media. We're all positioned in the lower bowl behind the advertised, covered up 6 to 8 rows, and we get to watch the game from a different viewpoint. But that'd be great if there's nobody around me. I get like 50 feet, and I get to watch football from that vantage point. I think it'd be actually excellent to maybe hear what these guys do and trash talk each other in a game with no fans. I would like to see it once. I want to see what it would look like.
Did the defense get better all of a sudden, or did Matt Patricia learn how to coach? Because I don't think without those two things, this team is going to be 8-0, or they're going to be rocking and rolling, or looking like they're going for a playoff win.
You're just bringing back reality.
I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry.
You know what you are? You're like the buzzkill at the end of the night where you're like rolling and bumping and you're grinding up against that MILF in the club, and you're like, bro, she's married. And you're like, yeah, so what? You're
like, yeah, so what? So am I. What's your point?
Yeah, what's your point? At the end of the day, you're like, oh, bro, there's the police. Knock it off. And you're like, oh, okay. Or you're like,
I'm not trying to be your buzzkill. I just don't know if the lack of fan toxicity is going to lead to W's this year. I mean, look, Matt Stafford's got to stay healthy. I think that's the number one thing that's going to help this team get more W's than L's. And then after that, I mean, the big issue that me and you had coming out of the draft and coming out of free agency was this team didn't do a good enough job addressing their defensive line. And unless that somehow gets taken care of in the next couple weeks, and unless Matt Patricia is maybe a little bit more flexible in his scheme, which seems almost prehistoric and outdated as everybody already knows what they're about to run, I just don't know if this team is going to be able to outproduce whatever that defense gives up. I think the offense is going to be very good this year. I thought the offense last year, doing it with Matt Stafford for 8 games and then a trio of quarterbacks that were less than for 8 games. I thought you had some really good production from your running backs. I thought you had good production from your wide receivers. I thought that that offensive line looked okay. But in the end, they just couldn't outproduce what that defense was giving up. And unless that offense is going to be able to do that at a clip that is absolutely nuts, I just don't know if it's going to happen, my man.
I want to personally thank Davante Adams for starting the month of July off good for us who are covering the Lions, because he sat down for a film session on Game Pass. If you are a fan of football, you probably should invest $100. Get NFL Game Pass. You can rewatch every single game. You don't have to worry about missing out on football, and they got good features. Players sit down and do film sessions with reporters, and Brian Baldinger did one with Davante Adams, and there's a part there that got tweeted out, and I got on it real quick, and it was really interesting in that he said, look, we watched on film 200 snaps, and every time that I saw Darius Slay cover me, I knew it was man. And every single time that he didn't, it was zone. It was automatic. We knew the Lions don't ever disguise their coverage. And if you recall, Davante Adams had himself a nice game at Ford Field where he blew by Darius Slay. And he came out and said it that Matt Patricia's defense was pretty straightforward. There's no secrets. And it caused a rash of interest and debate regarding, well, is Matt Patricia really a genius? Those that support the Lions and that were making excuses were like, look, it's no big deal in the age of pre-snap motion. That it's no big deal if offensive wide receivers know what's coming or know what's going on. Look, I looked at that and I said, okay, at least first, there's something interesting to talk about in terms of scheme. While it's not that big a deal because of the fact that, hey, everybody watches film on everybody and there's such a small line in between winning teams and losing teams, but it does at least give us a little glimpse of what these players know about the Lions. And Matt Patricia's defense, it's pretty straightforward. The secondary's in man all the time. And Matt Patricia expects that, hey, if you're a cornerback, you got to do your job. But in the end, I do think that with increased pressure, I think this batch of cornerbacks is going to have a better opportunity. But hey, nothing wrong with saying, you know, Matt Patricia, mix it up a little bit. Something is called an exotic play where you give one look and then you do something else. In 200 snaps, they never did it. So Davante Adams made a good point. It's not something you just totally dismiss, in that what he said was, I knew what they were doing. There was no secrets, no surprise. And look, the results bear that Matt Patricia was wrong. Paul Pasqualoni and him did not help out the secondary, and I'm certain that pissed off Darius Slay and Quandre Diggs, because the secondary was held out to dry because there was no mystique. There was never 200 snaps he looked at, and he said, okay, every single time I ran this way, he was there. That's man. So they never disguised it. We're not asking for you to disguise it every single play, but never once? Come on now, you got to do a little better job of helping out your secondary. Otherwise, you're going to have a pissed off young rookie because he's going to get torched all the time.
No, you're right. And I think that was part of the issue that me and you have been screaming about for a while now.
What's up with the defense?
Yeah, with the way this defense is ran. Because we know what we're getting, right? You don't disguise any blitz coverages. You show 3, you bring 3. You show 4, you bring 4. You have your secondary constantly hung out to dry. And his thing is we're going to build from the back end to the front. No, man. All good teams build through the trenches first. And if you apply enough pressure with your defensive line and your defensive front, it makes your secondary that much better. Darius Slay was a very, very good cornerback up until last year.
Yeah.
Up until last year. So, like, did he just fall off? Did his talent just stop? No, the answer is no. He was put in a really uncompromising position. And when he started raising questions, and when Quandre Diggs started raising questions, next thing you know, the guy who's supposed to be the smartest man in the room said, you know what? You guys got to get out. You got to go, because you're going to blow up my spot, because you figured it out. You broke the matrix, and you guys realize I'm a total boob. So
exactly.
You gotta go.
And guys, pay attention to coverage. The Google machine is such a legendary machine, okay? All you got to do is remember, because I lived it. I lived the experience, and Darius Slay said it, and it got hush-hushed, and it got poo-pooed right away, because that's what Matt Patricia does. Just Google Darius Slay says defense is not putting the pieces to the puzzle in the right spot. It comes up from last November in that he came out and said that the defense was not putting the pieces together right. What did that mean? Obviously, he knew that the secondary was not going to be put in the right spot. He knew that it's on certain plays that they were going to get exposed, and on certain schemes, when there was going to be no pressure, he had no chance. So he came out and said it last November, and I think that definitely got him in trouble. But the Lions always do a good job of when anything flares up, then one of the beat writers from the Lions asks the first 3 questions, and then Matt Patricia gives a 5,000-word answer. So it's not, you're not hiding anything, bro. We know what you're doing. But it's smart. I think it was smart. It's like, oh, when there's going to be a story, okay, the Lions.com, we're going to ask the first 3 questions, and Matt Patricia is going to talk for a hell of a long time, and he's going to bore you to death. So it's smart. I like that manner in which you conduct things, but it wasn't hidden. It wasn't hidden. People knew that. I think a lot of the players sometimes would question Matt Patricia and that defense, and he's like, do your job, and I don't know how much leeway. It'd be interesting to see if people talk further down the road in their careers. How much input did they have to Matt Patricia to say, hey, we don't want to play this. We don't want to keep doing the same man-to-man coverage over and over and over. We're getting torched. We're not getting interceptions. We're getting torched here. Let's do something different. Let's go more into zone. Let's help us out. Let's not get us exposed. But it'll be interesting to see down the road if any players down the road talk about how much did Matt Patricia be willing to bend in terms of his scheme? And that'll be something to definitely pay attention to. But Devontae Adams, thank you. You started off July with giving us some scheme and some football to talk about. Good stuff. Now, before we get out of here, we're going to play a round of over-under. I got 6 stats and predictions going forward for some of the players, the marquee players for the Detroit Lions. Jock is going to tell us, and we'll have a little banter regarding what he thinks the Detroit Lions are going to do this season. Let's start right away with one of the potential MVP candidates, Kenny Galladay, 1,190 yards last year. The over-under that's set right now in Vegas is 1,100 yards and a half. Do you think he goes over 1,100 yards? Because SI's gambling experts, many people online, because that number got drove down, they're like, bro, if there's an easy money bet, pick up over 1,100 and a half yards for Kenny Galladay. They're like easy money, bet the farm on going over. What do you think?
I would bet he goes over 1,250 next year.
See?
You have to realize he had 1,190 with Matt Stafford only playing 8 games. Then he had a freaking musical chair assortment of backups as his QB, and he still posted 1,190. And I think he was a top 10 wide receiver last year. I think he goes top 5, and I think he does something along the lines that are closer to 1,300 yards. I expect a big year from him.
Absolutely. Now, the biggest thing that everyone's going to pay attention to is the health of Matthew Stafford. Do you believe he starts 16 games in 2020? Yes or no?
So I find this to be an interesting question because if he starts over 16 games, that means they're playing in a playoff game. I don't think this team is good enough to get to the playoffs. And I don't think Matt Stafford's body is going to hold up the entire 16-game season. So I think Matt Stafford will probably start 15 games, maybe 14.
Okay, so you're going under. You don't believe...
I'm going to go under.
Okay, I agree with you. I just think that in the National Football League, there's always going to be one mistake that a lineman makes, especially if you start a rookie that potentially could get him rolled up on maybe an ankle, maybe an arm injury. I think he starts 15, one game maybe late. If they do have a productive season, maybe you can rest him a little bit. But I don't know if he goes another full 16 games in 2020. All right.
I really wanted to go over for this because I want to be the guy to be like, no, they're making the playoffs this year, guys. They are the for sure bet going from worst to first this year. I can't buy into the defense. And I know we're going to get to the defense. I can't buy into the defense right now.
Now, one of the key members of the offense is going to be Kerryon Johnson. Does he stay healthy? The over-under, 805 rushing yards for KJ going into his 3rd year.
So Kerryon Johnson last year playing 8 games had like 403 or 406 yards. So basically, to get that, he'd have to be healthy for 16 games. Kerryon Johnson's never been healthy for, I think, more than 13, maybe 12 games. So I'm going to go under here, and it's based on his availability because he's not very available because he's always dealing with some type of lingering injury. His rookie year, he had like 605 yards rushing. So I think he's going to go under, and it's going to be based on him only playing probably 10 games.
Over under 8 sacks for Trey Flowers, a massive signing in 2019. You know, he's a good defensive lineman and he's a good solid contributor, but probably you need a little bit more. Does he get to 8? I don't think so. I would go under.
So I'm going to go over. I think he's going to be schemed to be put in a spot where where he really excels. I think it was one of those things where he got off to a bit of a slow start, and then once he kind of got going in this defense with Matt Patricia again, he ended up finishing the year with seven and a half sacks. So to get one more, I don't think that's going to be difficult. I'm going to go over, but it's going to be barely. It'll be like 8.5 sacks for sure.
Now, the third overall pick, let's look at what he does in his rookie campaign. Does he have over under 13 pass breakups and over under 2 interceptions in his rookie campaign in the National Football League with no mini camps, no OTAs, just jumping right in with a training camp, probably some sort of abbreviated camp, a guy that by all accounts knows the defense, has some familiarity with it, a hard worker. What does Jeff Okudah do in his first year? 13 pass breakups, 2 interceptions, over under.
Let me ask you this. If Jeffrey Okudah played as well as Darius Slay played last year, would you take that from your rookie?
Absolutely.
Okay, so 13 pass breakups and 2 INTs is what Darius Slay gave you last season. Does he do what Darius Slay did his last year in Detroit? I'm going to go under. I think Jeffrey Okudah will be a okay fit for this defense, but I don't think he gives you the production that Darius Slay, a veteran, gives you.
Okay, and finally, now, the defense. Does the defense finish 15th in the National Football League, over under? Where does the defense rank?
Under. I'm going under. I think this defense will probably finish somewhere right around 20, I want to say 25. So it'll be improved from last year, but it's not going to be vastly improved. I don't think you have enough up front, so I'm going to go under, and it's a big under.
Ooh, good stuff, sir. Man, what a good podcast this week. I enjoyed it, cuz. Follow us on Twitter at Detroit Podcast. Follow the network, and make sure you get your voice heard. We love reading all the good content. Now, for those that follow the Jock, if you want to agree or disagree with anything that he said at all, follow him on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. We enjoy broadcasting each and every week. This was fun. I like doing over-unders. I like having the fun banter. Man, we're going to survive COVID. We're going to survive everything and keep podcasting each and every week. I always enjoy recording an episode of Doc and Jock with you, cuz. Always good stuff.
Absolutely, brother. I appreciate you. Enjoy your vacation.